מיכל ושרונה, תודה רבה. אני מבקש מאחד מכם להדליק נר זיכרון לעילוי נשמתו של סמל מקס שטיינברג.
Should we light ours as well?
Okay. Yeah, please.
ערב יום הזיכרון אני נרגשת מאוד לפתוח את ערב המורשת לזכרו של הגיבור, הלוחם, סמל מקס שטיינברג, זכרו לברכה, שנפל במבצע בצוק איתן. אנחנו נרגשים מאוד ומכבדים אותנו כאן בנוכחותם, בזום, המשפחה היקרה שלו שנמצאת בארצות הברית, האב סטיוארט, האם אבי והאחים ג'ק ופייג', ונמצאים פה איתנו המשפחה היקרה שלו פה בארץ, המשפחה שפתחה את הבית ואת הלב וימצא אותם אל חיקה, משפחת פסין, שמקס ממש גר אצלם בכל התקופה של השירות, האחים מיכאל ושרונה. תודה רבה לכם. And thank you very much for you, dear family. It is an honor to open this evening to commemorate Sergeant Max Steinberg, זיכרונו לברכה, who fell in the operation of Tzuk Eitan. We are honored to have Max family join us through Zoom from the US. Stuart, Avi, Jack, and Paige. And from his adopted Israeli family, we have Sharona and Michael Pessin, who welcome Max into their family and home during his service. הסיפור של מקס זה סיפור שמהדהד עד היום בלב של כולנו. כמעט כל מי שנזכר בסיפור הזה, הלב ככה מחסיר פעימה ממש. קשה לשכוח את עשרות האלפים שהגיעו להוקיר את זכרו בלוויה הזאת, שהייתה באמת לוויה בלתי נשכחת אחרי הנפילה הכל כך כואבת שלו. עם ישראל כולו, גם כאן בישראל וגם בתפוצות, התאחד לרגע המיוחד הזה ולרגע הבלתי נשכח הזה, וליווה ביום העצוב הזה את מקס. בשיר שכתבה חנה סנש, היא אמרה, כל קרה והלכתי, הלכתי כי קרה הכל. והתחושה היא שמקס הלך לצבא כי הוא שמע איזשהו קול. זה היה קול פנימי, קול של הנפש היהודית, הגבורה הזאת שהוא ראה לנגד העיניים שלו, והוא החליט ליישם אותה בגבורה עצומה הוא עצמו. והיום אנחנו מתכנסים פה בעצם להוקיר ולספר על החיים שלו, על הגבורה שלו, וכמובן על המורשת שלו, של מקס. Max's story resonates in the hearts and minds of us all. We all remember the tens of thousands who participated in his funeral in Har Herzl. Max's bravery and sacrifice continues to be an inspiration to all of us here in Israel and throughout the Jewish world. Today we come together to share Max's story, his bravery and his legacy.
עכשיו יש כאן את סמל שלומי שי, מפקד בגדוד נצח יהודה, שהתחבר מאוד לסיפור של מקס, והוא ינגן לנו שיר שמקס מאוד אהב, שיר של בוב מרלי. So we are joined here by Sergeant Shlomi Shayo, who like many others was inspired by Max's story, and will play one of Max's favorite songs by Bob Marley.
Don't worry about the things, 'cause every little thing, it's gonna be alright. Sing it, don't worry, about the things, 'cause every little thing, it's gonna be alright. Wake up this morning, smile me the rising sun, three little birds from my doorstep, swinging sweet song, melodies pure and true, singing, this is my message to you. Don't worry about the things, yeah, 'cause every little thing, it's gonna be alright. Sing it, don't worry about the things, 'cause every little thing, it's gonna be alright. Wake up this morning, smile me the rising sun, three little birds from my doorstep, singing sweet songs, the melodies pure and true, singing, this is my message to you. אל תדאג אחי, לגבי כל הדברים, כי בסוף תאמין, הכל מסתדר. אל תדאג מה שלנו, לגבי כל הדברים, כי בסוף תאמין, הנה הכל יסתדר. Don't worry.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I would have loved that. You made me cry, but happy tears.
מרגש, באמת מרגש. You know, dear parents, I remember the funeral. I remember the picture in the media. I remember when we opened the newspaper, when we saw the news, we saw the funeral, and I remember the impact on my heart, on my family, on everyone. And I want to ask you, if you don't mind, to share with us, what was so special in Max that he had such a big funeral? It's a big zchut. What was so special in him?
Thank you for asking, and thank you for the beautiful song, and thank you for your words. We're very grateful to be part of this today. I think what was special about the moment, separate from Max as a person, was the fact that he was a lone soldier. And the country and the Jewish community at large recognized that a man who was a volunteer, was not required, obligated to serve, made the decision to go to Israel and to fight for the Jewish people and of course for Israel. And so the people that came were showing their appreciation and gratitude and making sure that we understood, which we still believe today to the greatest extent possible, that Max was not alone, and that we were not alone, and that the country and the Jewish community came to support us and to make sure that we knew and the world knew that Max did not die in vain. So from our perspective, Max is the most special person in the whole world, right? And his personality was bigger than life. And it was, I think, exemplified by the many people that spoke, since Max passed, that we met in Israel, that got to know him and understand him and value his whole being. He was truly a very special young man.
So can you share us maybe something, a special moment, something about his personality or something about your memories from his childhood?
Yeah, the thing about Max Max, not because he's my child, but he was a very special kid. Growing up, he was very small. He was small. He was always the smallest. He was always smiling. He was known for his smile. He always smiled. He had a very distinct voice, like a low voice. And he was always throughout school. He was always like teacher's pet. They always used him like to speak if they had to do a story or a play in school. Max would be the one. He would represent a school. He was so small that he had to stand on a box to reach the microphone. I mean, he was just that kind of kid. And he was very small. I know he grew up. I know he was made fun of. I know that he was bullied. I know this, but he never said a word about it. He was a child that I think some of my greatest joy was watching him in sports. He played soccer and baseball, and he was always the smallest, but he was always the fiercest. And he was always the player that all the team members would know he's the one to go after. They'd go after him, they'd throw him down, he would jump back up and just never cried. He was just that kind of child who just always smiled and would get up and just get back into something. He was fearless. He was just fearless.
So I want to ask you, what happened suddenly that you wanted to come to the army and to serve in Golani? What happened suddenly? Maybe Paige, maybe the brothers and the sister, and I know that you also came with him to our Herzl, right? And you had a moment that he came back and he decided that he's coming back to Israel. What happened there?
So the three of us, Max, Jake, and I went to on Taglit, and we all like fell in love with Israel, and we all just had the best time. We were connecting with Israel, connecting with the soldiers on our group, and I'll never forget being at Har Herzl to like pay respect to the fallen soldiers there. And it was like Max, he had this like very emotional breakdown there. And I think in that, over the course of the trip, he started kind of imagining his life in Israel. But when he went to Har Herzl, he realized that if he was going to live in Israel, like everybody else, he also had to serve and be in the army. And I remember just looking at him and just seeing how emotional, we all were very emotional, but it's like he took it very to heart. And it's really it's just kind of very full circle for me, because where we were at Har Herzl is literally basically where he's laid to rest now and buried. So it's like I have this vivid memory of being with my brothers and him saying, yeah, I'm going to join the army. I'm for sure going to stay here and join the army. And then now that's like where he's buried. So it's pretty incredible.
So it's about you and about him and about, normally we speak about soldiers, why he decided to come. And I want to ask you how you reacted to his decision. How you in America, you live in America, and suddenly your son, your brother come and deciding such a decision, how you reacted. I'm thinking about Eve, about the mother, about Stuart, about the father. Such a hard decision.
I'll let my parents answer that, but I think as a sibling, like we have a different experience, because our first time in Israel was with Max on that trip, and we saw kind of like his journey and his connection to the IDF. And my parents, their first time in Israel was his funeral. So I think all of us were very, excited for him, because at the end of the day, when someone's following their heart and doing something that's so passionate to them, of course, we won't be encouraged to that. But I think, again, for me, I was also like, yeah, I also love Israel. Like I ended up moving back after he passed away, but I really saw how much he connected to Israel and to the army. So for me, it was like, yeah, I can see him doing this.
Even Stuart, how you reacted to his decision?
Well, for me, it was Max is very impulsive. So for me, I mean, he was on Taglit, he was still on Birthright, and he would send me pictures, from Birthright. And then he said to me, oh yeah, I'm going to move back to Israel, and he was going to join the army. And I thought, yeah, okay, whatever. And then he came home. This was in June, and he got home the beginning of July. And by September, he was already turned around, had done all the paperwork, and was back to Israel to join the army. And we felt, I think if he was younger, if he was like 18, I'd been more worried, but he was already 22. And Max was a survivor. He was a street kid. He was he could survive anywhere. So I wasn't worried as much about him. And I honestly didn't know that much about Israel at all. I had I didn't have any real fears or anything. And I just wanted him to be happy. I mean, as parents, you know, you want to give your kids wings to do what they want to do. And it's not that, I mean, I wasn't like, oh, I'm so happy, you know, but I was happy that he was happy. And I wanted him to do what he wanted to do. And so, you know, so Stuart and I think we both were supportive of him and we were happy. I really believe he found himself. He became a man when he was in the army. We saw his last trip home, we really saw a different person. He became a man. And we were really happy for him. And the army was actually the best thing that ever happened to him. And he loved it. He loved it. Loved it.
Stuart, there is a moment that you dream, maybe at night, that you want, a moment that you want to come back to a special moment with him?
I just want to smell him, you know, smell him and hear his voice. He was always a very affectionate kind of, I mean, he's the kind of son, I could be in a mall, walking down in a mall, and he would hold my hand still at his age. I mean, he was that kind of person. He would be like, come on, he called me Madre, come on, Madre, you know, and he was just to be with him and just to laugh with him and just really just to hold him, just to hear his voice and just to see his big smile again. That would be great. That would be great. I miss it.
For me, it's a hard moment now, but we'll continue. זה הרגע קשה עכשיו.
Sorry.
No, for a mother, I just want to smell my child. Okay, נחזור שנייה אליכם. We'll do a few minutes in you, bro. I need to breathe. תשמעו, אתם פתחתם את הדלת שלכם, את הבית. לחייל בודד, בכלל המושג הזה חייל בודד, זה מושג שלי נורא קשה לשמוע אותו, כי מה זה בודד? הרי הוא לא באמת בודד, אבל בעצם הוא בודד פה בארץ, ואתם פותחים את הבית ומגיע אליכם מקס. מה החוויות? איזה תחושות יש? איך זה שמגיע, זה בסוף לא ילד, זה בסוף מגיע אדם בוגר.
בעיקרון מקס, אנחנו הכרנו אותו דרך בן דוד שלנו, שגר בארצות הברית, הם היו חברים טובים שם. פשוט שאל אותם אם אנחנו יכולים לעזור לחבר שלו, שהוא מגיע להתגייס בארץ. אז אמרו סבבה, שיבוא אלינו לבאר שבע. הוא הגיע אלינו לבאר שבע, והוא נשאר אלינו בהתחלה שהוא נשאר כמה ימים, אחרי זה כמה שבועות, אחרי זה נוסף נשאר כמה וזו הייתה חוויה מדהימה, זה היה משהו שלא הכרנו אנשים כאלה.
נכון, זה בן משפחה, חגים, שבתות, לבדוק שהוא הכניס את כל הכניסה המלוכלכת, ולהגיד לאבא מה הוא רוצה לאכול, וביום הולדת שלו לחפש בדיוק את החולצה עם התמונה שהוא אוהב, והחברים של אחי היו החברים שלו, הם יצאו ביחד, הם תפעילו ביחד.
זה הופכת להיות משפחה.
כן, כל החגים.
אבל בכל זאת בתהליך מול הצבא אתם מרגישים שיש חסמים, יש אתגרים, יש דברים שבאמת קשה לו ביום יום להתמודד איתם?
אני חושב שהאתגר הראשון היה להתמודד עם צה"ל בחגים. הוא הגיע לפני החגים, אמרו לו שיעזרו לו ובהתחלה קצת קשה. אחרי זה היה צריך להילחם כדי להיכנס לגולני 13. אמרו שהוא נמוך מדי, שהנתונים שלו לא מתאימים.
וואו, תספרו קצת על המלחמה הזאת, זה נשמע לי נורא קשה לשמוע את זה. הבן אדם בא, עזב בית, עזב משפחה והצבא מערים קשיים? מה היה שם?
הטענה הייתה שפשוט היה גם נמוך, אז הצבא אמר לו שכרגע בנתונים פיזיולוגיים אתה לא יכול להתקבל גולני, הוא פשוט התעקש, הוא פשוט התיישב ואמר, לא גולני.
נלחם על זה, כמו שאיב אומרת, he's a survivor, נלחם ונאבק ובסוף ניצח.
כן, בסוף הם נכניסו אותו, והוא ברח שם, הוא בסוף קיבל גם כמה מצטיין, הוא היה היה לו מופת.
וואו, וכשהוא היה בא הביתה, מה היה מספר לכם על החוויה שעוברת עליו בצבא?
נראה לי זה נתן לו המון משמעות. אני חושבת שאחד הדברים שהוא מאוד מאוד חיפש בחיים שלו, זה להרגיש משמעותי שיש למרות שהוא לא הבין מילה, רוב הזמן, הוא עומד לתקשר, ושומעים סיפורים מצחיקים על זה, אז בעצם התחושה הזאת של עושה ביום שלך, דברים שאתה מרגיש שיש להם ערך, איך להשתלב עם החבר'ה, אז היה לה המון סיפורים מצחיקים של חוסר הבנה שלו, או הוא כל הזמן ניסה לעבור איזה חומה, וכמה הוא השקיע, ועבד על זה, והכל היה כל כך שונה, כל דבר בשבילו זה חדש, דברים שמובנים מאליו עבורנו. אז הרבה סיפורים כאלה.
נשמע בחור עם הרבה אנרגיות טובות. אני רוצה לשאול אתכם משהו, כמשפחה שאימצה חייל בודד, מה אתם יכולים לספר פה על החברה הישראלית, למישהו שמקשיב לנו, על המציאות הזאת של חיילים בודדים? אני יודעת שתשמעו, אנחנו מדברים פה על חייל בודד שהגיע מארצות הברית, ויש לו משפחה חמה ואוהבת, אבל אני יודעת שגם יש פה בארץ הרבה אנשים, הרבה חבר'ה שהם פשוט חיילים בודדים, כי הבית לא לגמרי מכיל אותם, ולא מכיל את הבחירה שלהם לצאת לצבא, הרבה פעמים בית שהוא יותר שמרני, והילד בסוף בוחר ללכת לצבא. מה אתם יכולים להגיד למשפחות שיכולות אולי לאמץ בעתיד, שחושבות על תהליך כזה? מה זה נותן לחייל הזה? מה זה נותן למשפחה ומה זה נותן לחייל? זה דו צדדי, הרי זה give and take.
זה עוד חבר משפחה. זה נותן עוד חבר משפחה ונותן משפחה שלמה, מהצד השני שלהם, כאילו במקרה שלנו.
ואתם יכולים אולי לספר על החוויה של, אולי אתם יכולים לשמש פה פה למקס ולהגיד מה זה היה עבורו הבית הזה שנפתח?
אולי גם באנגלית, שהיה קצת...
Soon will be in English back, but בכל זאת, it's a message, it's a very important message for the Israeli society. I just asked Michael and Sharona what they can say for families here in Israel that can open their house for soldiers, and not only for American soldiers. In the end, Max came for a very warm family, for a big family, who all the time were I'm sure that you were a part of this life, but there are so many soldiers here in Israel that they're family, more conservative families, or families that don't want to see their children part of the army, and when they have the decision to go to the army, they are lone soldiers. So I just asked Michael and Sharona if they can share what was for Max the connection to the family here in Israel. What was, maybe I asked them to be his mouth and to say how he felt with them, with the family that adopted him, and how they felt with the connection with him.
זה בחירה, להכניס מישהו הביתה, זה לא תמיד הדבר הכי נוח, אתה לא מצפה לזה, אתה גם לא ידענו בדיוק כמה זמן זה יהיה, אבל גם המחשבה הזאת שהוא יודע שיש לו מי לחזור בסופה, שגם אם זה לא היה כל סופה, שיש מי שידאג אפילו לצרכים הכי בסיסיים, זה נראה לי משנה את כל התמונה, כי יש גם קיבוצים שהם ערכים חיילים בודדים, שזה גם חוויה שהיא שונה, אבל פה זה ממש משפחה, הוא יכול לחזור אליה. ובסוף הצבא משתדל לעזור, אבל הוא לא תמיד מצליח לתת כל המענה, גם כמפקדת לשעבר אני יודעת, משתדלים, אבל אין בסוף מספיק לתת. והערך האישי הזה, שיש מישהו שמחכה לך ספציפית, זה נראה לי עושה את כל ההבדל.
מאוד משמעותי. נכון, אז כאילו היינו מזמינים משפחות קצת להיפתח לדבר הזה, ולארח חיילים בודדים גם שמגיעים מהארץ, שהרבה פעמים הבתים ככה קצת מתנכרים להם. לא מתוך מקום רע, אלא הרבה פעמים ממקום שהוא לא מכיל, ואני חושבת שמה שאתם עשיתם זה מדהים, זה נפלא בעיניי. So I would like to ask Stuart, if it's possible, to ask you, what did Max tell you about his service, about his family here in Israel that adopted him? What was his impact to you?
Well, my recollection, of course, is that, he loved the Pessin family. He was very grateful for them opening their doors and allowing him to be part of something, because as you know, he had a Pessin family was through a friend here in the United States in the Los Angeles area, was the connection to the Pessin family, but I don't know that Max actually knew.
I think once he met them.
Did he meet Silver?
I think he met you guys, Michael, he met you one time, right? When you came to visit Fred here in the United States. Yeah, he met one time.
Okay. Anyway, so this was the only connection that he had in Israel, and it was wonderful that they opened their doors and their home to give him the support that he needed during that time. So he was always very complimentary and appreciative, and that was Max. He just, he was always a grateful young man. He didn't take anything for granted. He was always first to say thank you and express his appreciation, and we knew that. We knew that very much.
Yeah.
Obviously, we met the Pessin family as a result of Max having been killed, and we could not have, had a better adopted family, if you will. It's been wonderful to meet them and be part of their lives, and we're very, very fortunate.
We don't know Israel without them now.
What?
And so they're part of our Israel experience.
Oh yes, absolutely,
100%.
100%. Yes.
Jack, I'd like to ask you, what did you do to commemorate Max? I heard that you have an NGO, you're doing a lot. Can you share a little bit with us, please?
Look, I think that all of us as a family have tried to embrace Max's sort of message of action. And we've all, right after Max passed away, I mean, we've all embraced Max and Israel and this entire cause. And so with Paige, moving to Israel, my mom and dad, really devoting their time and efforts to lone soldiers and their families. I've done, my thing to commemorate Max and his legacy to a certain extent through my work. My career is at APAC these days. I don't know when that will not be the case. Like, this is something I'm very, very devoted to, and this is an organization that is promoting a U.S.-Israel relationship. So, in many ways, Max really embodies that idea really more than anyone you can choose. This was an American that decided to serve in Israel for a variety of reasons that do include, shared values and just a belief that the Jewish people have a future in their home, and that we have a responsibility to ensure that. So that's how I commemorate him, through action.
I have the feeling that that's what I'm doing as a minister of diaspora affairs. I'm trying to connect between world Jewry, between the people who live here in Israel to world Jewry that live abroad all over the world, to try to connect. And I feel that Max's story is a big connection. Everyone hears this story and everyone feels that part of their soul, part of their heart is there. And I want to ask you if you have any message, sharp message that you want to send to the world Jewry, to people that hear you, any message that you want us, everyone, to hear, and anything that you want that we, all of world Jewry, could commemorate Max, to do something, maybe a special thing that you will wish that all of us will do for him.
Go out and do something kind for somebody. Go out and do something. I forgot, there's a word in Hebrew. I don't remember the word. There's a word that you do, and you go out and you do something for somebody else. I don't care if it's, give somebody a loaf of bread or help somebody pump gas, something, but do something and think of Max and him smiling and to do for other people. And also to spread the word about Israel. There's so many misconceptions about Israel. Just tell the story about Israel. Get people to go to Israel. Israel sells itself. I knew nothing about Israel, but once I got there, I understood why Max connected to Israel. There's something about Israel, but you have to go there. So you gotta go out there and just talk to people and tell them about Israel and try to get them to get to Israel, because that's really where you learn about Israel. Can't explain it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the conversation. Thank you very much for the opportunity to meet you. Kavod gadol. And I hope that everyone will do משהו טוב, something good. One chesed, ועילוי נשמתו. ועילוי נשמתו של מקס. תודה רבה לכם על ההזדמנות. ותודה רבה לך, שלומי.
Thank you so much.
It was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please, שלומי. שיר למעלות, וואו.
שישמור את נפשך, השם ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה שיר המעלות, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם השם, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל יתן למות רגליך, ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא ישן, שומר ישראל, השם שומרך, השם צדקך, יהיה מלך, יומם השמש לא יככה, והריח בלילה, השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, השם ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה
שישמור את כל החיילים שלנו, את כל חיילי הצבא, הגנה לישראל.
תודה רבה. יהי זכרו ברוך.
יהי זכרו ברוך.